Good morning, Kirk.
Good morning.
I am so glad you are here because I'm going to talk a little bit about you.
All right, bring it on.
My wife and I were at Greenfield Village a few weeks ago, and we like to go into the old homes and the old shops, and we walked into the Wilbur and Orville Wright bicycle shop, and later on we went to the house, I believe. But lo and behold, there's my friend Kirk. And I knew that you worked at Greenfield Village. I guess I just never knew where. And now I've discovered that you are a historical presenter, correct?
Yes.
Of the Wright brothers buildings.
Yes.
And so he gave us a personal presentation, and it was delightful. And later on, he texted me to let me know he just had a book published. Some of you probably don't know that. I have it right here. Hold on a second. And so after I learned about it, I went to Amazon, and lo and behold, there it is. The Right Words. You can remember that. Amazon.com. It's only $8. Now, this is not a big, hefty book. About 85, 90 pages. But it's a really good read. And I'm going to give you that review right now because I gave you 4 stars on Amazon. And I want to recommend it especially to families with children and young adults and even old adults. There's some good material in this. So thank you for writing this.
You're welcome.
And it's a pristine copy. I'm going to put it on eBay and
Sign it.
I'll have you sign it first. And you know me, I like to laugh and joke around, but I really am serious about the book. I think you will find the stories in each chapter inspiring. I learned a lot just in that little book. Things I did not know about the Wright brothers. So, if you want to be inspired, young and old, good. It reads almost like a devotional. I think you'll like it. Anyway, I share all this because right after I received the book, I went to it. I read it in maybe 30 minutes. But I'm a fast reader. But I went through it and I thought, wow, this is really some good stuff here. I came to the chapter that you titled A Wish to Learn. You remember that chapter? And this inspired me. This is what I read. I mean, a surge of inspiration flowing through my body. And I quote, and this is the words of the author. When we look at the world around us, learning from afar, our solutions are only as good as the discoveries made by those few who have climbed on and tried. Most fail. Even more never try. But the solutions found, the solutions we implement, are there because of the few who take action. You have to be willing to fail, willing to try, and willing to do the hard work. Now, the book's about the Wright brothers, and this is exactly who they were. They were men who were determined, and when they began to work on an airplane that would fly, man's first flight, they spent thousands of hours, and there were many failures as they worked on the glider system. And everyone before them had failed, and they knew that something was wrong. They had to correct it if ever they would have an instrument that would lift a man into the air, something that people have been thinking about for thousands of years. And 4 years of trial and error and failures of the machines that they would build. And then one day, our world changed forever. That fragile aircraft lifted a man off the ground, and people were in awe. Our world changed forever. Well, after reading this, I thought about a home project that I have. I've been putting it on hold, and I've been almost hesitant to do this, but I would look at the back of our house, and I would look at our deck, And I'm trying to beautify things and make them nice, and that's just who I am. And so I read this in your book, and I thought, if they can build a machine that a man can fly, even though they tried and they failed, by golly, I can clean up this wall on our house. And so picture the scene. Here's Pastor Kren in my work clothes. It's a Saturday morning. Remember how hot it was a few weeks ago, scorching hot, but it's cool early in the morning. And so I put on my work clothes, I grab some of my tools, and I look at this wall that has, outside wall of our house, that has an Ameritech telephone box, 2 AT&T boxes, and some other box that has some wires going to it. And I think, they have got to go. I am not going to call the phone company. I'm just going to do it. And so I did. Down came that Ameritech box. Ameritech? Give me a break. We haven't had Ameritech in years. I found how to take it off, and then I ripped it out of the wall, and then I took my wire cutters, I cut the phone line, and then I followed it to where it was coming from. I cut that line, I rolled it up in the trash. 2 AT&T boxes, same thing. Boy, it was starting to look good. Then I looked at one final box and I said, you are gonna go. It is old and ugly. And I found a way to take off the cover, found the wiring, unhooked it, cut the cables, and it looked pretty good. I was so proud of myself. Now it's starting to warm up. I'm thinking, okay, my next project is I'm gonna go in my study. It's also a spare bedroom, and Sue has her computer there. I'm gonna clean this mess up, because we had wires all over the place, and I wanted to make it look tidy. And it looks great now, doesn't it, honey? See, she's shaking her head. So I tackled the room, and I rearranged things, and there were some old cables we didn't need. I took them out. There were some devices that were just old and just sitting there. Took them out. They're going to be in my yard sale in a couple weeks. I mean, I was a cleaning up fanatic. When I was finished, I began hooking up the wires, because I know how to hook up modems and all that, and turned on the computer. It didn't work. But you know what? I just heard on the news that Comcast had an episode, thank you, church, that I can depend on you, and there were a lot of outages. And so I thought, okay, Comcast, I'm going to give you a break. I'll call you if things don't pop up. So anyway, I go into the living room and I turn the TV on. What's going on here? No television. Well, just about that time, my son-in-law and my daughter, they come over. I can't remember what the reason was, but so I turned to Brett and I said, hey, you know what? It's crazy. I said, Comcast and the outage, it's messed me up. I have no TV reception. And it just so happens I cleaned up the back and cut all the phone lines. And he said, Bill, did you cut the cable? I said, of course not. I didn't cut I know what a cable for Comcast looks like. And then after he walked out, I thought, I better look. So I got up and I started walking around the house. And I couldn't find the Comcast line. Where did it go? Where did my Comcast line go? Where?
Poor Sue.
I called Comcast. The repairman was over on Tuesday. After about an hour, hour and a half, everything was working again with a brand new box that I had ripped up. And now I'm working on my sermon and I'm thinking, wow, this is just exactly what happened to me. I mean, here is Isaiah. And he's in the presence of God. And he's given this cleanup mission, this project. And chapter 6, probably one of the greatest chapters in the Old Testament, he begins his day. Now, we opened our service singing, Holy, Holy, Holy. Can you imagine a choir of angels singing this in perfect harmony, perfect tune? Probably an orchestra there, great music, Brian at the piano, What a great Sabbath day of worship. And here's Isaiah before the presence of God. And we read, beginning in chapter 1, that the place was filled, or it was in the year of King Uzziah died. He said, I saw the Lord. He was sitting on a lofty throne. And the train of his robe filled the temple, the place of worship. Attending him were mighty seraphim, each having 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, and 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. And they were calling out to each other, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of heaven's armies. The whole earth is filled with his glory. What a dramatic beginning to your day. You're in the presence of the Creator. You're surrounded by the holiness of God. You are praising, you are singing, you are shouting. And in verse 4, Isaiah describes what he hears. Their voices shook the temple to its foundations. The entire building was filled with smoke. And then one angel takes a burning coal. And in verse 7 it says, Isaiah says, he touched my lips and said, see, this coal has touched your lips. Now your guilt is removed. You're a clean man now, and your sins, they're forgiven. What a cleanup project. And then in verse 8, Isaiah gets his job assignment. And here's a clean, holy, spirit-filled, on fire man. I'm going to serve God. What is it? Here I am. Send me. Wow. I'm not trying to compare his cleanup day to mine. I wouldn't dare do that. However, it's safe to say we both experienced the zeal to serve God. We are determined to make things clean and right and orderly. My day ended in a failure, a disaster. Guess what happened to Isaiah? But as we follow along and we study this, we find out that serving God and working in the church, more times than not, our best efforts end up a disaster, a flop, a mega flop. And it's then that we need to remind ourselves, like the Wright brothers, faith dares to fail. We know this because God spoke to Isaiah and in so many words prepares him for a day that's going to be a disaster. Here's how it reads in Isaiah 6, beginning in verse 9. God said, yes, go and say to this people, listen carefully, but do not understand. Watch closely, but learn nothing. Harden the hearts of these people, plug their ears and shut their eyes. That way, they will not see with their eyes, nor hear with their ears, nor understand with their hearts and turn to me for healing. Then Isaiah says, well, Lord, how long will this go on? And the answer is, until their towns are empty, their houses are deserted, the whole country is a wasteland, until the Lord has sent everyone away, and the entire land of Israel lies deserted. If even a tenth, a remnant, survive, it will be invaded again and burned. But as the terebinth or oak tree leaves a stump when it is cut down, so Israel's stump will be a holy seed. Now, in essence, what God is telling Isaiah is that I'm going to send you out. You're going to be my spokesperson. It's going to be a disaster. You're going to fail. But in this failure, there is going to be a great victory. Now, I don't know about you, but I try to picture myself standing in Isaiah's shoes and thinking, I don't know if I want to be any part of this. God is telling me I'm going to fail. I am not very encouraged at all. I mean, in the beginning, everything seems super. I'm in the place where you worship God, and I met with him, and there's angels, and I feel so empowered to serve. And now he's sending me out, and he's saying, go get him, Isaiah. It's going to be a disaster. That pretty much sums up church work today. We get fired up. We have zeal. We have projects we want to do. It seems like God drops a bombshell on us. Isaiah was told to expect to fail. When I came here over 4 years ago, I came with great expectations. Brian, I had it all figured out. In 4 years, you could not find a place to sit in our sanctuary. And I thought, I've done this before, and I know how to reach people and invite, and I've been working hard. And we still have empty spaces. And there are times when I feel like a failure. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. Don't you give up. Don't give up on our church. I challenge you, don't give up. Continue to share your story, share your faith. Continue to be a missionary in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights and Allen Park and wherever you live. We got people from Taylor, and I'm over in Garden City, and I talk about our church. Don't stop. Tell them about Dearborn Congregational. Tell them about this body of believers who enjoy each other's company. We're family. But you know what? We got room for more. And as you do it, expect rejection. People will tell you just about anything they think you want to hear. I'll be there Sunday. Didn't show up. You feel rejected. Don't let that get you down. You just keep on working. I'm going to make an early announcement here. I wasn't going to do this, but this is just for you guys. After summer's over with, I've decided I'm going to restart a Bible study here at the church. I'm going to do things just a little bit different. I'm going to have 2 Bible studies on the same day. One will be about 10 in the morning and last for an hour, or 10:30 to 11:30. I haven't decided on the time. The other will be around 7 in the evening. So you can pick what time you want to come and be a part of the Bible study. It's going to be a little different, and I think you're going to enjoy it. That's all I can tell you right now. But I've got it up here. I've been working on it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So watch the announcements beginning in August when I got it all figured out. And this is going to be your tool. You go and invite someone to come to the Bible study. Show them your bulletin. Would you like to come with me at 2 o'clock or at 7 o'clock? Don't have to bring a Bible. We've got them here. This is going to be a safe place. You won't feel threatened. Our pastor never hits anyone on the head with the Bible. You need to tell them that. God said to Isaiah, harden the hearts of these people, plug their ears, and shut their eyes. And you'll invite, and you will share, and you will begin to notice that there are a lot of hard-headed, hard-hearted people in your life. This is our adventure in failure. And sometimes it leads to extreme disappointment. Don't give up. God's working. I see this in my second point. I call this great effort. Great effort. There's this blind fellow. He has a seeing eye dog and his white cane. And he's walking down a main thoroughfare, just tapping away. And he gets this distinct whiff of beer. He likes craft beer. He finds the door, walks in. It's a bar. He doesn't know it, but it's an all-girl biker bar. Got that? All-girl biker bar. So he finds his way to a bar stool and orders a draft, and he's sitting there for a few minutes, and then he yells over at the bartender, "Hey, you want to hear a blonde joke?" Dead silence in the place. Then this deep, husky voice leans over to him and says, before you tell that joke, because you're blind, you should know a few things. First, the bartender is a blonde with a baseball bat. The bouncer is a blonde. She lifts weights. I'm 6 foot tall. I weigh 175 pounds, and I have a black belt in karate. The woman sitting next to me is blonde. She's a professional wrestler. And right down at the end of the bar sits a blonde who is a boxer. Now really, do you want to tell a blonde joke here? The fellow sits there for a moment, puts his head down, thinks. He said, no, not if I'm going to have to explain it 5 times. Hi, Joanne. Love you. Let's go back to our scripture. We read in verse 11, what's expected from Isaiah and for anyone today who works in the church. And I call this our great effort. Again, Isaiah said, Lord, here I am. How long will this go on? This is God's reply. Now, this is the Greek version. I'm going to read it in English. But this is really a direct translation from the Greek. And he said, God speaking, go and say to this people, when you hear what I say, you will not understand. When you see what I do, you will not comprehend. For the hearts of these people are hardened, and their ears cannot hear, and they have closed their eyes. They cannot see. Their ears cannot hear. Their hearts cannot understand. They cannot turn to me and let me heal them. Wow, again, not much encouragement. Because in our time of ministry, people haven't changed. I mean, people will continue to rebel against God. Their eyes are closed, their ears are deaf. Does this mean we have to just turn around and go home and give up? Or dare we fail for Jesus? And if we have never failed, could it be it's because we've never tried? One of my favorite Christian authors is A.W. Tozer. The man he's brilliant. And he never went to college. Wrote a lot of books. And one he says this, we can afford to follow Christ to failure. Faith dares to fail. The resurrection and the judgment will demonstrate before all the world who won and who lost. And then he adds, we can wait. Oh, I like that. I mean, sometimes serving God, it's an adventure. And we have our high moments. I love being on the mountaintop and looking down, and I love being in the presence of God's glory. But all the work that is going on in the church, it's not on the mountaintop. It's down in the valley where people are hurting, where their eyes are closed and they need to see and hear, and we need to talk about Jesus. And when we go down to the valley, this is when God is working. And we know that God is working because he has promised Isaiah, and he'll promise us. Albert Einstein's wife once confessed that she could not understand her husband's theory of relativity. But then she added, what's more important, I can understand my husband. I don't know how God works sometimes. I question the things we have to go through. Why we have to do this or that. But you know what? I'm serving God. Never makes a mistake. And so I better keep my mouth shut, keep listening, Keep working for Him, because I know that all things do work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. Good promise. Which brings us now to my last point. I love the ending. Don't you love great endings? I sure do. Verse 13. If even a tenth, a remnant, survive, it'll be invaded again and burned. But as the terebinth or oak tree leaves a stump, when it is cut down, here's the great ending. Israel's stump will be a holy seed. And what God is saying here is that there really are no failures when I'm at work. When it's God's plan, when it's His purpose, when God's will is being accomplished, we win. In the verse, Isaiah is told that there's going to be a remnant. What's a remnant? Just a tiny portion. Maybe not even a tenth. Just a remnant who will know God. Now, let's take a look at that as a businessman or working in a plant as a manager. And the boss wants you to produce. And he comes to you and says, "Hey, Dave, what's going on here? I want X amount of production and you're giving me this?" And Dave says, "Well, hey, it's good stuff." No, that won't do. And the world looks at this as failure. "Dave, you're fired. Hit the road." And now we have Dave here in church. That's not his story, by the way. I made that up. But I wanted to use him just to illustrate that sometimes we think we have failed and God is working, and a few are going to listen. A few are going to become God's chosen. You're a few. You know what I think? We're a remnant. We got to keep going. We got to keep moving. I know not everyone's going to listen. And don't be afraid of the meeting that we're going to have in 2 weeks. This is a meeting of information for you to think about, and we'll have some good discussion, and we'll talk about our church. But I thought this is the message we need to hear before we have any kind of a discussion. Remembering God put us here 75 years ago, and when we started, we were just a tiny little seed. We were insignificant. Why, hardly anyone in Dearborn knew we existed. Here we are, 75 years later, and the holy seed that was planted is growing. Now, I know it's not growing as fast as we would want, but this is part of God's plan. I don't understand it, but we are the holy seed. We have a promise here from God. I believe we're going to remain. Let me read the last verse and I'm finished. Hebrews 6:10. This is our promise. I'm going to hold on to this promise. It says, because God is not unjust. He will not forget us. How hard you have worked. How hard generations before us have worked. He will not forget how you've shown your love to Him by caring for other believers. And then it ends, as you still do. And amen.